I think this one will ruffle some feathers. So Pilates, Legree, EMS, vibration plates, and trendy workouts tone muscles differently to other forms of training. Now, I think what we see is there are these sort of classes popping up or these technologies created that basically promote the ability to do something that can't be achieved by other sorts of things, right? So maybe it's around creating a long, lean, feminine muscle, and it's kind of juxtaposed against traditional strength training, creating bulky muscle, right? So if you're that way inclined, you're going to be like, yes, I'll use this new thing or this class because I don't want bulky muscle. It solves a problem that isn't really there, to be honest. And so this really comes from, again, sort of what Marvin was saying earlier, the whole kind of how to keep fitness exciting and interesting, how to keep people walking through the doors and basically make more money, right? And there's also the fear of traditional training being too manly. You know, celebrities often promote these trends. And also these give rise to all of these terms that we've spoken about: tone, lengthen, lean muscle, sculpt, burn, and all these sorts of things. So Melvin, I'll hand over to you here because I'm sure you've done more research on this than I have. And then I can take some of the others.
Yeah, I went down this rabbit hole when I first moved here, actually, funny enough. I was working in a CrossFit gym, and the head coach at the gym was a former Pilates instructor. And he did not look like a Pilates instructor. I mean, he was short guy, but like, really well built, incredibly fit, very proficient in, a lot of movements, like very complex CrossFit movements. And we kind of got to talking, and I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. And so I kind of went down the rabbit hole, kind of trying to figure out where this whole Pilates thing came from. And interestingly, Pilates actually originates from trying to create a way to help people in the war that had been injured in combat to rehabilitate, right? And so that happened, right? This guy, Joseph Pilates, essentially created this. He was, I believe, exercise science specialist, and so studied the human body, understood movement, understood breathing, posture, all these types of things. And then he went and created this, and so they used this right in these situations to get these soldiers back into combat. And funny enough, they used the springs attached to the hospital beds to actually create what are reformers today, right? The reformers we see in Pilates studios were initially started as hospital beds. So interesting how innovative that kind of was. And so turn, 100 odd years later, here we are, and Pilates is a method of training. It's become a class, it's become a thing. It's the matcha and the Pilates, it's the, long lean muscle and Pilates, it's the Lululemon or Aloe and Pilates, like all these other associations, right, with Pilates. And yet the original intention of what was created is very different from what it looks like today.
Thank you. You did it way better than I could. But I think, with all of these things, yes, like with all of these types of training or sort of methods, right? There is sort of nothing wrong with them. We're not kind of putting them on blast. It's, you can see progress if you do nothing, right? If you are a beginner, you don't do anything, then any sort of one of these things is going to be an improvement on that. And there will be results in relation to that. Maybe not the best results for what you're trying to work on, but there will be sort of progress. And also things like these, they move you in different ways, right? So, arguably in strength training in the gym, you're not going to get into a position like this. So you're going to be sort of stretching out the muscles, lengthening the muscles in different ways than you would in other modalities, which can be beneficial. And so whenever we get people who or clients who are like, I'm thinking of doing a Pilates class a week, I'm really enjoying it, like, great, amazing, because ultimately more movement is better in some ways, right? If you are training 3 times a week in the gym and you want to add a fourth session, which is Pilates, absolutely go for it. But like, don't compromise on the stuff that is going to sort of help you get to where you want to be quicker, if that makes sense. Now,
Yeah.
I know Legree is something that has taken Jeddah by storm. I've trialed it as well. And I think this was basically something that was sort of to a bit of a step up in relation to just your standard sort of reformer Pilates, turning it into more of this, well, even more of maybe a cult following or boutique fitness class. And with this as well, the emphasis then was placed on calorie burn and sweating and fatigue and high intensity. And as we know from, what was it, 2 group coaching sessions again, the calorie burn element, the sweating are things we want to detach from, right? We do not sort of want to associate exercise with those sorts of things, or that sweating leads to fat being burned or whatever it is. And so, as kind of Marvin was saying, these things tend to sort of evolve into this lifestyle, this identity that you want to be a part of, because yeah, it can be attractive. And again, Legree, tough class. I did one here in Jeddah, and there's can be great benefits from it. But again, it's how that fits within the week and knowing why you're doing it. You're not doing it for some reason that isn't actually true, but what are you getting out of it?
Yeah, I think with the
Um,
Pilates and Legree especially, one little thing that I didn't touch on or didn't mention is, as Peter's saying, like it's go ahead and do it. Go and do it because you enjoy it, because it's fun, because it's another way to create movement. But one other benefit of doing things like Pilates and Legree and all these other things is the element of like a sense of community, right? Like you kind of get together with the girls, you do this, you do that, you're socializing, and that's fun too, right? You're getting other people to move in ways that perhaps they wouldn't have ordinarily moved, or you're getting out of the house for the 4th day as opposed to, just your 3 strength training sessions. So, have at it, go and enjoy the Pilates. But yes, it's not the cornerstone of changing our body composition.
Jemana has a question on hot yoga and sculpting, sort of mat Pilates. So I think I've done hot yoga a few times. For me, to be honest, I find yoga kind of boring. Because maybe it's just I'm not good at it or whatever, but like it's not my kind of training, right? And so hot yoga, like absolutely not. Again, done it a few times. It's just not enjoyable for me. Whereas if you enjoy, because I sweat enough. Like I just walk outside and I start sweating. So I don't need that. Whereas if that's something that you enjoy, then what else do you need to consider in relation to it? Okay, good hydration. Is your body now recovering from that extra stress that you're putting it under? Sort of things like mat Pilates can be a really good thing to help with your breathing and to your core engagement and these sorts of things, which can often be missed when it comes to stuff that you're potentially doing in the gym. So yeah, if you enjoy it, Amani, I didn't want to sort of out you earlier, Amani, about the poll, but you've said it here yourself. It's something you enjoy. It works your body in a different way, and absolutely, like go wild, enjoy it. But again, like know why you're doing it. It's not for. I'm sure you don't do pole for the calorie burn or to lose body fat. It's something you enjoy. There's a skill component. You want to get better at it, and obviously, it moves you. It exercises you. Fine. So EMS, I'm sure you've probably seen this sort of coming around in various different cities in Saudi. And, it's the promise that 20 minutes of work twice a week will have you see amazing results. And this really, electrical muscle stimulation, it comes from like the rehab and the physiotherapy side of things to help patients who are or have been immobilized, who've lost a lot of muscle mass to stimulate the muscle contraction again. So, for example, if your leg has been in a cast or has been, had a plate in it or something like that, this can be a way to get the muscles to work again. And then it was sort of adapted or adopted by elite sports as a supplementary recovery or activation tool, not a replacement for proper training. And so I remember talking to someone here who has a place in Neom for EMS training. And what their protocol is, 2 20-minute sessions a week, but also you have to sign up for 3 like gym sessions with them as well. And so it's kind of like what is going to be getting the benefit to the individual? Probably the strength training and just generally moving more here as well. So again, it's knowing what it's doing. It's not magic. It's not, some fancy thing because you've been put up to a machine and it shocks you and you can only lift 1 kilo weight. It's knowing kind of really what is the most effective and best use of your time. So all of these sorts of things, they can be marketed as smarter or more feminine or going to get you better results. But there isn't really truth to it. They are going to give you results, if you go from a position of doing nothing to something, right? Anything is. But it's knowing that they're not going to be the sort of the magic bullet, which is, you've been waiting for. exaggerated, misleading. And so, yeah, like, why is it a myth? I think we've sort of covered this off. We've mentioned toning, lengthening. We've mentioned the sort of class-based stuff, Pilates, Reformer, Legree. They don't really factor in progressive overload. Yes, you can change the weights, you can change the springs, but you're not kind of noting it down and, you know, progressively doing it session after session after session, right? So that element is missing. And obviously, as comes with everything, what is happening elsewhere, nutrition, recovering, consistency, and so on.